Every day, thousands of people move across Maputo Bay in southern Mozambique. Today, they cross it in just a few minutes, driving over a massive suspension bridge that stretches across open ocean water. But not long ago, this journey looked very different. People waited for slow, overcrowded ferries. Weather delays were common, and for a capital city trying to grow, this single water crossing had become a serious limitation. Then came a project that would completely change that reality. A bridge built over deep ocean water, designed to handle powerful winds, shifting seabeds, and long-term exposure to salt and corrosion. A structure so large that its towers rise higher than most buildings in the city it connects. When it opened in 2018, it became the longest suspension bridge in Africa. And it wasn't built by Mozambique alone. It was designed, financed, and constructed with major involvement from China, turning it into one of the most significant infrastructure partnerships on the continent. This is the Maputo Katembe Bridge. It crosses Maputo Bay, connecting the capital city of Mozambique, Maputo, to the Katembe district on the southern side of the bay. On a map, the distance may not seem large, but for decades, this short stretch of water acted as a major barrier. The bridge itself stretches for nearly 3 kilometers, with a main suspension span of about 680 meters. Two massive towers rise more than 140 meters above the water, holding up steel cables that carry the weight of the entire deck. At the time of its completion, it became not only the longest suspension bridge in Africa, but also one of the tallest structures in the country. The project was built by China Road and Bridge Corporation, a state-owned construction company with experience in large-scale infrastructure across Asia, Africa, and Europe. Financing came largely through loans provided by the Export-Import Bank of China, making this one of the most expensive infrastructure projects ever undertaken in Mozambique, with total costs estimated between $700 and $800 million. Construction began in 2014 and continued for several years under complex conditions. By November 2018, the bridge officially opened to traffic. But this project was never just about building a bridge. It was about solving a long-standing transport problem, opening up new land for development, and creating a direct road link towards South Africa, one of the region's largest economies. To understand why this project mattered so much, you first need to look at what life was like before the bridge existed, and why a single crossing over water could hold back an entire region. Before the bridge was built, the connection between Maputo and Katembe depended almost entirely on a ferry system. At first glance, that might not sound like a major issue. The distance across the bay is relatively short, but in practice, this crossing was slow, unpredictable, and often unreliable. Ferries operated on fixed schedules, but demand regularly exceeded capacity. During peak hours, long lines of vehicles would form near the terminals, trucks carrying goods, workers commuting to the city, and families trying to cross the bay all had to wait, sometimes for hours. Weather made the situation worse. Strong winds and rough water could delay or cancel trips altogether. When that happened, movement between the two sides of the bay would slow down or stop completely. This had real economic consequences. Maputo, as the capital, continued to grow. Businesses, government offices, and services concentrated on the northern side of the bay. But Katembe, just across the water, remained largely underdeveloped. Not because of distance, but because of access. At a larger scale, this limited Mozambique's ability to fully connect with regional trade routes. South Africa lies just to the south, and improving that connection had long been a strategic priority. But without a fast and reliable crossing at Maputo Bay, that route remained incomplete. So despite being separated by only a few kilometers of water, Maputo and Katembe functioned almost like two different regions. One side developed, the other waited. And over time, it became clear that the ferry system was no longer enough. A permanent connection was needed, something that could operate every day, in all conditions, and handle the growing demands of a modern economy. But turning that vision into a physical structure required solving a much more difficult problem: how to build a massive bridge over open ocean conditions. This was not just a question of distance, it was a question of environment. Unlike river crossings, this bridge had to stand over open ocean water. That meant stronger winds, deeper foundations, constant wave action, and long-term exposure to salt, which slowly corrodes most materials. Every part of the structure had to be designed to handle these conditions for decades. Engineers chose a suspension bridge design. This type of structure is used when long spans are required and when placing multiple supports in the water is not practical. Instead of relying on many pillars, the main load is carried by two massive towers and a system of steel cables. At Maputo Bay, those towers rise more than 140 meters above the water. They act as the main support points for the entire bridge. Between them runs the main span, stretching roughly 680 meters without any support beneath it. This allows ships to pass below without obstruction. The weight of the bridge deck is carried by thick steel cables that run over the tops of the towers and anchor deep into the ground on both sides of the bay. From these main cables, vertical suspenders hold up the roadway below, and designing it was only the first step. The real challenge came when construction began, and workers had to turn these plans into a physical structure in the middle of the ocean. Even with careful planning, construction did not happen in controlled conditions. The environment itself remained one of the biggest challenges from start to finish. Maputo Bay sits along the Indian Ocean, a region that regularly experiences strong winds and seasonal storms. During certain periods of the year, cyclones can form offshore, bringing high waves and unpredictable weather. These conditions made it difficult to maintain a consistent construction schedule. Work often had to stop. Heavy lifting operations, especially those involving cables or large deck sections, require stable conditions. Even moderate wind speeds can make precise positioning impossible. When storms approached, crews had no choice but to pause, secure equipment, and wait. Wind was not just a construction issue, it was also a design challenge. A suspension bridge is flexible by nature. That flexibility helps it absorb forces, but it also means the structure can move under strong wind loads. Engineers had to ensure that the bridge would remain stable under extreme conditions, including gusts that could push against the deck and cables at high speed. Then there was the issue of corrosion. Saltwater is one of the most aggressive environments for infrastructure. Over time, it can weaken steel, damage joints, and reduce the lifespan of structural components. To address this, the bridge was built with protective coatings, sealed systems, and materials designed to resist long-term exposure. But protection does not eliminate the problem. It only slows it down. This means the bridge will require continuous inspection and maintenance throughout its life to prevent deterioration. Another challenge came from the ground itself. The seabed beneath the bay is not uniformly solid. In many coastal areas, layers of soft sediment can shift over time. This creates uncertainty when placing foundations that must support thousands of tons of weight. Engineers had to design deep foundation systems capable of maintaining stability even if conditions below the surface changed. Seismic risk added another layer of complexity. While large earthquakes are not common in this region, the bridge still had to meet safety standards for ground movement. That required flexibility in key structural components, allowing the bridge to absorb energy without suffering critical damage. And finally, there was the scale. Projects of this size involve thousands of workers, large volumes of materials, and multiple phases running at the same time. Coordinating all of this over open water increased the difficulty. Any delay in one area could affect the entire timeline. In simple terms, this was not a project where conditions could be controlled. Instead, engineers and workers had to adapt continuously, responding to weather, environment, and technical challenges as they appeared. And despite all of this, construction moved forward. However, building a structure of this scale required more than engineering. It required financing on a level that Mozambique could not easily provide on its own. The total cost of the Maputo Katembe Bridge project is estimated to be between $700 and $800 million. For Mozambique, this made it one of the most expensive infrastructure projects in the country's history. To fund it, the government turned to external financing. The majority of the funding came through loans provided by the Export-Import Bank of China. This type of financing is commonly used for large infrastructure projects, where repayment is spread over many years rather than paid up front. Along with financing, the construction contract was awarded to China Road and Bridge Corporation. This meant that both the funding and the execution of the project were closely tied to Chinese institutions. And while the bridge delivered clear improvements in connectivity, it also raised concerns that continue to be discussed. The first issue is debt. Because the project was financed largely through external loans, Mozambique took on a long-term financial obligation. Repayment is spread over many years, but the total amount, including interest, adds pressure to public finances. For a country with a smaller economy, this is significant. If the bridge supports enough economic activity through trade, development, and increased traffic, then it can justify its cost over time. But if usage remains lower than expected, the financial burden becomes harder to manage. There are also ongoing costs. A suspension bridge in a marine environment requires regular maintenance. Saltwater, wind, and constant use gradually affect materials. Protective systems slow down deterioration, but they do not eliminate it. Over time, inspections, repairs, and upkeep will require continuous funding. So the bridge represents two realities at the same time. On one hand, it is a major piece of infrastructure delivered quickly through external financing. On the other, it is a long-term financial commitment that depends on future economic performance. However, the Maputo-Katembe Bridge is not an isolated project. It is part of a much larger pattern of infrastructure development across Africa, where China has played a central role over the past 2 decades. Across the continent, Chinese companies have been involved in building roads, railways, ports, power plants, and bridges. These projects often follow a similar model: financing provided through Chinese banks, construction carried out by Chinese state-owned companies, and repayment structured over long periods. This approach has allowed many countries to build infrastructure faster than would have been possible using domestic funding alone. In practical terms, it has accelerated development: railways that connect inland regions to ports, highways that reduce travel time between major cities, ports that increase trade capacity, and bridges like the one in Maputo that remove long-standing transport barriers. For China, these projects serve multiple purposes. They create opportunities for Chinese construction firms, which have the capacity to deliver large-scale projects efficiently. They also strengthen economic relationships, opening new markets and trade routes. In many cases, infrastructure improvements support the movement of goods between Africa and global markets, including China. So when you look at this bridge, you are not just looking at a crossing over water. You are looking at one piece of a larger network of projects that are reshaping how countries in Africa build, connect, and grow. And that brings us to the final question. Can projects like this truly transform an economy, or do they create long-term financial risks? Should countries rely on external financing to build critical infrastructure or focus on slower domestic development? And if your country faced the same challenge, would it build a project like this or choose a different path? Let us know your thoughts in the comments.